in order to go to China, you had to go on a tour. We couldn't go to China by ourselves. Actually, we couldn't speak the language. We couldn't. And this was right after they let the West come. It was opened up to people of the West. This when Red China and all of that was involved. And so when we could get to go to China, we decided we wanted to go to China, but because that we probably wouldn't do much more foreign travel. So we did go on this tour to China, and it was very, very interesting. We got there. It was at nighttime, and they took us right to our hotel. Now, it was hotels at that time, since they were just opening up to the West, it was so-called first class hotel. We would not call it that today. But we got to China. And it was a very interesting time in China because they had not had many people from any place in the West. We are part of the West, considering them. They took us to a one of these caverns. We have all these caverns here, in our country. They took us to this big cavern, and while we were there, it was very interesting. While we were there, this one woman in our party, she left the cavern and she never told anybody she was going out. So everybody went out, and we don't know where this one woman is. She didn't tell anybody she was. This is an interesting story. That's why I'm going into it. She didn't tell anybody she was going out of the. She didn't even tell her husband. All right. So the two guides who were there, where did we lose it? Did she walk back someplace else? They got all excited, and the two guides went back into the cavern, and didn't we? Nobody knew. I mean, we didn't know anyway that what they do at the end of the day, they turn out all the electricity, which means every bit of light. So anyway, these two girls go back and everything is fine. I mean, the lights are all on. They're trying to find this girl, can't find her. And all of a sudden, the lights go out. And here they are, the two of them in this cavern, which is there's no light coming from anything. So what they did, they just stood together and they held on to each other and they screamed. And I guess they screamed so long that somebody knew that they had to come and, put on lights and get to where they were. So that was it. We didn't know that until after. But can you imagine 4 girls? She had gone out. And so she was, well, what's all the excitement? What's everybody doing? Lost. She just went out. She had enough of it, I guess. She had enough of the kitchen. Anyway, can we come back to her later? These stories there's a lot of stories today. They always took us to some place for our lunch. Now, when we had our lunch, they would do, they would take us to a restaurant. But the way we were served lunch, we would be seated at big round tables, maybe 8 people to a table, and the center of the table was a big lazy Susan. And on the lazy Susan was all the food. It was like when you go to what you call it? Yeah, and yeah, like you go to a buffet. Well, anyway, so this big lazy Susan, it could turn around and you could take what you wanted to put it on your plate. That's the way we were served our lunch, which was interesting because all the different foods, that would come along, and that you got to know different foods that way, which I thought was really clever. So some of these restaurants that we went to, when they talk about restrooms, one place we went was a slip trench. just letting people. At least they were for men and for women. I mean, it was so that was very interesting. See, this was when they were just opening up the country to for visitors. So some of the places weren't really opened up yet. So that was an interesting experience. So we had such a good time with all these people because while we were there, we went all in the pyramids. We saw all the pyramids. We saw all these things which everybody always does on trips to China. We walked on the Great Wall, which I mean they've made this so it's you can't do it again, but they redid the wall so that you could walk on it. But this part of it anyway, which was great. So we walked the Great Wall and did went to in all these tombs that we could, and it was really great. All the things that we were able to do. And we got to know these people so well, being on a tour with them and doing so many of these things with them. Might have been 12 days or something like that. But we did see a lot. We did, there was a lot to see and a lot to do. They weren't building those very big buildings then, but when we were on the streets of people, like especially in Hong Kong, that was very crowded. But in Hong Kong, that was both English and Chinese in those days back then. All right, the last night they decided we would have a farewell dinner. All the people in our what you call it, our trip, you know. So anyway, we were having the farewell dinner, but so in the afternoon we had free. We could do whatever we wanted. If we wanted to go back someplace or whatever we wanted. So Harold and I decided this would be fun for us to do. We went back to Hong Kong on the 30-cent ferry, and we went. Oh well, we had been there before, even. So anyway, we went back and we decided that all these funny little things that had happened with people, let's buy funny little presents for all these people. It Hong Kong was very cheap, and 5 and 10. I really mean it's 10 cents. Okay, so we bought a lot of these for the various people, various things that happened. Uh, so which we would have and we would give to them on the night of our farewell dinner. So that's what we did. We bought all these things and we took them with us to the dinner. So we gave them out at the dinner. Well, the things that we had, I wrote down some of them, but as I could remember some of them. Uh, we gave the two guides, the two girls. We bought little flashlights. This one fellow who was buying things all the time. He was buying furniture to be shipped home and all this kind of thing. Well, we found out later he was getting married that next year and he's buying things for his home. He didn't tell us that at the time, though. We found out later. Uh, anyway, he was buying all these things. So we told him, with all these things he bought, when he got to our country, he'd have to get a truck to take all the things to his house. So we bought him a little toy truck. Then there were these two girls who were friends before they came on the trip, and they were always together. We bought them salt and pepper shakers. Yeah, so we bought all these funny little things for them for all of these. I can't think of all the things that we bought. Uh, I can't think of the thing we bought for the gal who broke her ankle on the trip. Yeah, she broke an ankle. She fell and she broke an ankle. I'm trying to think. We bought something that for her, and I can't remember what it was we bought for her. But the fellow we gave the truck to, he was a psychiatrist. So he had all kinds of medical, what do you call it? Medical training he had. So he was a doctor. So when she had to go to this hospital, we thought, oh boy, this hospital is going to be something, you know. We were taken once to a hospital, and it was horrible. So I hope she doesn't get taken to a hospital like that. He said, I'll go to the hospital with you. He said, I can. So he was very nice. Anyway, that was that. So we bought all these funny little things, and we had such a good time that night, giving them all these crazy little things, which did something about our trip and what they would do. As I say, the flashlights and the truck and the I can't. Trying to think of some of the other things we bought people, but we had a whole bag full of stuff we brought with us from Hong Kong that night, and so that was fun. They thought it was fun too. I'm glad they did. Well, we decided let's do something real spectacular. Let's do something that's not being planned. We were the only ones who planned it, but you see, we didn't always stick with what was going on. So you got to know your grandparents did a lot of things off the record and so forth. In our younger days, we did. So anyway, they decided they would have at the very end, our last night there. They took us to this revolving uh, restaurant. Goes all around, and yeah, okay. So anyway, I can tell you something funny about that. Because you never know really where you are on those revolving restaurants. Well, I went to the ladies' room, and when I came out, I couldn't find my table. I was on the right floor, I guess. Eventually, I found it. That was a funny experience. So the next summer, oh, what we had, since this was a tour, they gave us all the names and address, their home addresses. Uh, this was before we went on this tour. So we had all their names and addresses. And some of them we sent Christmas cards to and so forth. So the following summer, all of a sudden we said, suppose we invite all these people from this. I mean, I'm not talking about hundreds of people. I'm not talking. I'm talking about this one, the particular tour that maybe 50 people that were on this. That we so we sent them invitations to a uh, pool party barbecue. So we heard from them. We made a form letter, that we sent them, and said if you're interested, let us know. Well, we heard from maybe about 30 of them, I guess, and so they were going to come. So we said, okay, let us know if you want any train timetables or, we don't know how you're coming. But we only said to people who were like on Long Island or someplace uh, around, not too far from here. Uh, anyway, I guess we must have had maybe 30 people come. It was fun. It was great. We decided we'd have the party. Well, when they wrote back to us or called us or however, let us know they were coming. Two of them said they had gotten married, not to each other, but to two different people. This one fellow who was buying all this furniture, he was getting married anyway. He must have had some money that he could buy all this and ship it home. Well, he was a psychiatrist, so he had some money. And another one of the girls, she was getting married too. So when they came, because we had hot dogs and hamburgers and the usual picnic potato salad, the usual picnic stuff. I'm sure that Jim remembers this big cake pan. It was, I mean, a big cake pan like this. Uh, I didn't have any plates big enough to put it on. I had a big tray, a big round tray that whenever I made this cake, I put it on this tray. But I always made that for birthdays, and I'm sure Jim remembers. Jim, you remember this big cake pan, I'm sure. Anyway, I made this big cake pan. I made this big cake, and what did I do? But since I knew the two of them had gotten married, I decorated it like a wedding cake. And white icing and all fancy what you call it, and I bought that could go on a wedding cake. I bought two brides and two grooms and two bridesmaids. and I put them on this great big cake. Well, of course, they thought that was fun too. So they could take the little things home with them, that was gave them something. So it was all fun. It was a fun day anyway. Some of them were from the city. A couple of them were from uh, I don't know, New Jersey, I think. But some of them were coming by train. Some of them were driving. I don't know. I told them all these options, in the letter that we wrote to them originally. And then when they said they were coming, I guess we said said, "Do you want us to send you any train timetables?" Or we didn't know how they were coming or what they were going to do. So anyway, we must have had about 30 people come. So it was a fun day. Our trip to China went on to the next year, and it was fun. We've sort of lost contact now. I mean, that was what, 40 years ago, and we don't know how many of them are alive. I don't know. I don't think we hear from any of them anymore. I mean, you do things like that for a couple of years after a trip or something like that, where you meet people, but after a while, you it goes away. Either they die or they, because if they were my age, how many of them are alive? Anyway, it was fun to have them all here the next year, and especially since we knew the two of them had gotten married and having a wedding cake and all, but made it fun. I like doing things like that. I did anyway when I was able to do those things. I would do those things today if I was able, but I'm not. I always enjoyed having a crowd of people. Well, my mother was like that. My mother wasn't happier than to have a lot of people at her home and to make a party for them.